So I saw a very interesting Twitter thread last night, and we need to talk about this finally. And low key, this conversation is right up my alley. Right here, you see the main tweet, right? It says the moms in my local Facebook group are giving their 11-year-old boys HGH because he's predicted to be 5'6". Now, what people don't understand, mind you, this tweet got 2.5 million views. What people don't understand is this is actually common in the suburbs community. This is very common amongst particularly Caucasian people. I'm not saying there's no black families doing this, but most of them, they don't really have to do that. we what a lot of I would say there's a lot of black families don't know this. A lot of white families where even if their son's genetics are fine, they will still give their kids particularly their boys HGH. A lot of them will even put their girls on HGH, believe it or not. This is very common. I remember when I was, and I know I'm kind of snitching on white people a little bit, but I remember because most of the schools I've been to is predominantly white. I remember being in elementary school and hearing this stuff from the parents talking about certain procedures, putting their sons on this, and I used to be like, what are they talking about? Until I hit like the 5th grade, and I was like, oh, they talking about HGH. You know, even like you see these gym people, or you see like these old, fit moms on Instagram looking good. They're on HGH. This is why, like, also because people will talk about certain athletes being on HGH or some type of supplement or something, steroids or whatever, and I don't really make a big deal about it. The reason why is because it's HGH and enhancements. It's just seeped in the culture. It's not really a whole lot of natty people. It's really not a whole lot of natty people, particularly when it comes to athletes. It's not really a whole lot of natties. When I call it natural, pure naturals, right? So this is a thing. This is a thing because I'll say this: moms, they could talk about, oh, you need to find a woman that loves you for who you are and blah blah blah, but they understand how ruthless the dating world is. And this is not only about dating. This is also about sports. This is also how ruthless the corporate world is, because in the corporate world, they've done the stats, or even in the politics world, they show the stats where like the leaders and CEOs is like 90 or it's like 80 to 90% of them are over 6 feet tall. That's not a coincidence. This is just what it. The CEOs, damn near all of them 6 feet tall. Politicians, when you look at all the presidents, we have all of them over 6 feet tall. This is done on purpose, right? So they already know the world is not kind to men of average height and shorter, but particularly short men, right? Now, off that tweet, somebody had put a man. He said a parent has a duty to do everything in their power to get their sons to 6 feet. And this is where I'm going to push back. But let's go back to the original tweet. He said the moms in my local Facebook group are giving their 11-year-old boys HGH because he's predicted to be 5'6". Now, a lot of these things are just environmental. A lot of these things are also what kind of foods the boys are eating. If he or she is drinking enough milk when they're in their formative years, what kind of sports they play already. That factors in a lot into how a boy or a girl is going to grow. So there's a lot of just environmental factors that go into this, where without having to give your kids HGH. That's just my opinion. And I always use black people for an example. Particularly, there's a lot more, how do I say this? The better black athletes tend to come from down south. Why? The sun's always out. It's hot all the time. You know what I mean? If you're living in northern states, you're going to spend a significant more time inside, and that's why you'll see probably the smaller black people tend to be from up north, because there's a level of a vitamin D deficiency because they're not spending enough time outside. You get vitamin D from the sun, right? This is why you'll see the best athletes, particularly ninja athletes, tend to be from Florida, California, Texas, Georgia. And I don't know why nobody can make these kind of these connections, but this is what it is, right? But there's a lot more that goes into that. A lot of this time is just people, particularly young boys, are not spending enough time outside. They're not spending enough time doing sports, doing certain things. You know what I mean? A lot of it is just spending time outside. A lot of it. And then a lot of it is the certain foods that you eat. So this all plays into how tall you become, how big you become. Even if you're destined, if your genetics predestined you to be a certain height, you spending time in the sun, you working out, you could still be a bigger person per se. Not necessarily taller, but a bigger person. All right. So somebody said, apparently this is common. I had no idea. You see, there's a lot of Caucasian people that are living, under the rocks when it comes to this HGH thing. People just think this is just something that, these are just the stuff that athletes are taking or bodybuilders are taking to get the edge. No, this is stuff like I grew up. There's a lot of dudes I know, their parents put them on something. It's a lot of boys I know, their parents put them onto something. I know this. I don't want to say no names. Somebody said, please tell me this is satire. Nope. And yeah, you could go onto these moms groups on Facebook and they will tell you this is the stuff that I would say that moms were doing back in the day, and people would not believe me. People would not believe me when I would talk about stuff like this when I was younger. I used to be like, yeah, I'd be like, these kids' moms be on some diabolical, planning type, build a son type stuff. This is the stuff that they do. They'll find out their kid is about to be a certain height or something's gonna happen, and then they'll do something drastic like this. This is very common. Somebody said my brother got hormone shots as a kid. He's still only 5'10". Well, that's good. That means he was probably going to be around 5'7", and then he became 5'10". That makes a world of a difference. I'm 5'7". There's a difference between 5'7" and 5'10". So that still makes a world of a difference. I think, in my opinion, when it comes to height, as long as you're the average male height, which is 5'9", you're fine. But height has now become such a prominent thing now. It's only because of the dating apps. The dating apps has only accelerated, or how do I say, it has accentuated this, height thing. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna tell you this: before 2018, do you know who the people who were giving me a problem about my height were? I had no woman giving me a problem about my height. It was all men. Up until the year 2018. Even in 2016, when I was on the dating app, I put my real height on there. I had no problems really getting matches. I kid you not, I had no problems getting matches on dating apps. It was really only until 2018 where women started going at me for my height. And then it was only until, I'll say, 2019 where, it was only until 2019 when I'm talking about a woman in public went at me for my height, which was a overweight, taller white woman, mind you. That was around my age. But even then, for my height, usually the women around my height are not ripping me for my height. Usually the women that are in shape are not going at me for my height. That's just been my experience, but it is what it is. But if you're a man of average height, you're fine. If you're 5'9" and above, you're fine. But I guess it's just the dating apps has accentuated this problem. The dating apps has just messed up the perception of what's short, what's tall, what's not. If you're 5'10", you're still towering over most women. Let me see. Somebody said, can we normalize this? If a man is projected to be a chud, a short cell with no hope, odds are he's going to grow up into a ishy person who hates the world, and especially women. These moms are doing us a favor by preventing their kids from turning into incels and potential killers. What is he talking about? This is what I'm talking about, where you'll have guys like this. They don't understand the correlation when you're talking about kids being so-called shooters and killers. The so-called incels, they've only had 1 or 2 incidents where their problems, where they shot up a place because of they're part of a group. That was Elliot Rodgers and like one other person. The rest have been non-incel related. So I don't know why they keep putting that on incels. And you know what's a common link for all these mass shooters? That all of them grew up with a single mom. Now I know people don't want to talk about that, but we're just gonna make men look like the bad guy. So a guy like this, he's just trying to make it seem like if you're short or you're quote unquote undesirable by a woman, you're going to be a a messed up person, which that let's not go down that road. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they done locked up people. They done found out. I'm talking about the people that get caught with the shooting. They're not short. They're like usually kind of like tall, lanky, awkward looking kids. It's more of a face thing from my perspective, but that's just me. That's just me. So that's not like, so even like somebody said, look at his 99% of femicide is committed by men shorter than 5'8". That's not true. I'm gonna need to see the data behind that. This is just a guy trying to promote something. Let me see. Somebody said, dude, giving an 11-year-old HGH with the belief that it will solely make him grow taller with zero consequences is insane. But what people don't understand, this is where people like there's obviously going to be consequences to that down the road. Where now you have like random dudes that they looked healthy this whole time and then they die at a young age. They develop heart problems. They get all these injury problems. They're never healthy, even though they look like they're tall and in shape. And now people are starting to put two and two together. Did their parents put them on some compound V or something? That's why I was trying to tell people the what's the show called? What's the show called with the heroes and Captain Homelander? I'm blanking on the show's name for some damn reason. Oh my god. Anyway, that show, I kept trying to tell people that show, it's very symbolic. Like it's very symbolic in many ways. It's more than just what the world would be like if we really had superheroes and supervillains for real. It's a very symbolic show. It's a very deep show, right? So let's go back to the original, or not the original, but this thing right here. Somebody said, I guess if there's no significant side effects, it's not a big deal. Or, we could just stop treating short men like other ish and promoting this artificial eugenics ish as a solution. Like I said, low key, we owe Hister an apology because we practice our own form of eugenics. People, it's just Hister took it too far. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that, YouTube. I meant to say Hister. The Austrian painter took things too far, but we practice our own form of eugenics, right? And there's a lot, like I say, it was a lot of people agreeing with the moms putting their kids on HGH. Mind you, these are the same people that be on Barry Bonds' neck, that be on other people's neck. I don't want to say their names because it's allegedly all these baseball players' neck. Meanwhile, this is why I've been trying to tell people, but specifically I'll say, because there's a lot of black people, they don't know this. There's a lot of black people that they do not know this, that how much enhancements that a lot of Caucasian parents put their kids on. A lot of, or even something simple as TRT, which is, I don't really look at that as cheating, but they're going to give their kids any advantage that they can, any. And if it means putting them on drugs, if it means putting them on that compound V, which will actually put them at risk for certain health problems down the line, they don't care. Oh, man. Somebody said, what if you give them HGH at 11 and they ultimately become 6'7"? But basically what they do, they tend to, they make sure they wait till their kids are actually growing. And once they start showing that sign of rapid growth, that's when they accelerate the process by putting them on that, that HGH. Now, the smarter parents, they make sure they put, they cycle it. They put their kids on the HGH in cycles. They'll sneak it into their drinks. They'll give them certain drinks and they'll put, there's other smarter ways to do it. Somebody said, my dad wanted to do this for me, but the doctor said, no, he'll be fine and normal. My hatred for my endocrinologist borderlines on murders. So, but really, this is what he's upset about. I don't even think this guy is upset about not being on the procedure because it could have helped him with sports. No, he's upset about this because he feels like this is affecting his dating life. And I think this is really what this is all about. Yeah, right here. So right here, he said the height thing wasn't that big of a deal until online dating skewed the marketplace to make people think they are valuable enough to make demands. This is something I completely agree with. This is really just about the dating apps, which has kind of ruined things, you know. Um, Someone said I'm 5'2", my son's father is 5'5", my son is almost 5'11", no HGH. Sometimes you just have to accept that nature can work itself out. But also what people don't understand is sometimes, like, another thing too, like what I've also noticed, even if like the mom is short, but if she comes from a family full of like tall people in it, sometimes it might skip over her and then it might get passed down to the son, you know. Or if the dad is short but he comes from a tall family, it might skip somebody and then the height might hit somebody else. So that's also another factor that comes to it, because so genetics is not always a perfect so somebody said these women sound like patriotic heroes who understand the lifelong value of a championship ring. Somebody said he's 11. Growth plates are still open. Just put him on a carnivore diet for 3 years. Why everyone making this complicated? I see where he's coming from. Make sure he's on a high protein diet when his growth plates are open. I see where he's coming from. But at the end of the day, it'll make him bigger, but it might not necessarily make him taller per se, right? So right here, somebody said, I think they're doing this so he won't be rejected romantically in the future. What would you rather have, a shorter life or a lonely one? And I think this is what this is all about. This is just about the romance part of the game. And I'll say this, these are the same women, to these guys' credit, these are the same women that will say your height doesn't matter, your looks don't matter, but secretly they're trying to make sure their son gets to be as tall as possible, because they understand the people really in the dating market or in the selling themselves market in general, or when it comes to athletes, the people that get the short end of the stick are short men. And they know this. This is why I kind of laugh when women talk about it. I don't get what I want in the dating market. Nah. Somebody said discrimination against short men is scientifically proven. As long as she doesn't force him to take it beyond reason, I actually approve. Now, this is where I'm going to come in with a disagreement. So right here, this guy says a parent has a duty to do everything in their power to get their son to 6 feet. And this is where I'm going to say this. Say if we all take your advice, we all get our sons to be 6 feet tall, at least. Now, because like I said, this is about dating. This is not about sports. This is not about corporate, even though it is about, like, the moms, they're doing this because it's about all of those things, but the men are approving this because they're suffering in their dating lives. But say if we follow the rules, we get all of our sons to be 6 feet tall at least. You know what you just did?
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Because what he doesn't understand is, okay, we get all of the men to be 6 feet tall. Now, 6 feet is now the new 5'6". Now, you know what women are going to be looking for on dating apps? 6'5" or taller. It's never going to stop. So for the people that are doing it because of dating or because of women rejecting you, I'm sorry, I have news for you. Height is not really going to help that. If you're doing it just specifically because of your dating issues, that's not it, bro. That's not it. Because if we get everybody to 6 feet tall, say we get everybody to making 100, every man making 100K. Now, you know what women are going to be doing? He needs to be making at least 400K, and he needs to be at least 6 feet 6 tall, 6 feet 6 inches tall. I can't be with anybody that's 6 feet. He has to be 6'6". This is how women work, guys. So I hope this is not because of women. I hope this is more sports related, and I hope this is more job market related. But I have a feeling this is dating related when it comes to the men. Now, the women are doing this for their sons because they're looking at it in totality. They're looking at it from the job market standpoint. They're looking at it from a political standpoint. They're looking at it from a dating standpoint. They're looking at it from all aspects. But the men are just looking at it from a dating standpoint. Right? But yeah, this is something I want to talk more in depth about, because this is very interesting. Somebody said all fun and games until these kids have heart attacks at 26. Height is genetic, not much else you can do about it. Facts. So I'll say this: when you see, like, particularly when you see kids, or later on, they be having like weird health problems, or they can never stay healthy, or they're supposedly big and strong, but then they be getting injuries. They get a pinky injury and they're out for 20 weeks. You're just like, what's the point? And you actually see it in the NFL with certain quarterbacks. I don't want to say no names, but they get hurt. It's certain quarterbacks, they get hurt in a pinky, and they're supposed to be these big, strong quarterbacks, and then they're out for damn near the rest of the season. You know, it's something to think about. But let me know what you think about this. This is an interesting conversation to have. What should we call this episode? The hype pill? I don't know. Anyways, shout out to you guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and take care.